Okay, welcome everyone to this week's episode of KUDEN Radio, the podcast for serious, or as serious as we get, right? Um, we're your protectors. I hope you're in that category. Because if not, this is going to be boring as hell. Anyway, Dashian Miller here from Warrior Concepts. Of course, you already know that if you're one of our regulars. If not, Dashian Miller here from Warrior Concepts. If I look old, it's not your screen. It's not your device. I've been training in the martial arts since 1975. I've been training in ninjutsu since late 1980. Into 81. Really close, right? Gave it to myself as a birthday present. Anyway, so we are here with this week's episode. So this is part 3 of a 3-part mini-series that I put together as we've kind of dove into the Togakure school, right? Our primary ninjutsu school, to take a look at a primary principle, right, that lies at the core of Togakure. And of course, that's backed up by a kind of a second principle that really close in importance. They both form this foundational piece. One is more to help the student, I think, right, to make sure that you understand the difference between Budo and Ninpo, right, or Bujutsu and ninjutsu. So that primary concept is that we never, when I say never, that's always subjective, right? Because there's always exceptions, but they're very few. So the core principle in Togakure is to never meet the opponent or never engage the opponent head on, okay? Nose to nose, toe to toe. One of the huge differentiators between Bujutsu, conventional Bujutsu, and ninjutsu, right? And so then that is supported by, or kind of helped along. We've been mentioning the nothing in ninjutsu is ever what it looks like, and I think this episode should bring things not full circle, but together, okay? Because we're going to take a look at during this one is in how these concepts, and I'm also going to introduce a little bit with regards to night fighting, fighting at night. But what we're really going to do is we're going to take a look inside of a traditional ninjutsu clan, right? Making air quotes for the folks on audio only, where we're going to take a look at how this principle or these principles would show up, or how they would manifest, how they would be done by each of the 3 primary types of ninja, right? The different roles within a ninjutsu lineage, family, school, clan, pick a word, whatever word works for you, and how they would apply it, right? So we're going to take a look at gaining, which is what really attracts most people, right? It's what the movies get all wrapped around, all that kind of stuff. We're going to take a look at the chunin. So gaining, low man, right? Chunin, middle man, and jonin, high man, or high person, right? Low person, mid person, high person, where, again, we're going to take a look at how they kind of approach things. One, what the job of each was generally. We're doing like a 30,000 foot big picture kind of thing over the terrain with a dirigible blimp, helicopter, whatever you want to think of. Not that a helicopter can do 30,000 feet. But anyway, so we'll take a look at those. And I also want to kind of touch on why these things were important, significantly important, right, to the survival and anonymity of a ninja clan network, those kind of things, as well as reflections in your own training and how we can kind of take this further. Okay. So anyway, we'll talk about that and more when we get started. So I'll see you when I get back. Question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world?
How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real people in a real world.
Okay, we are back. So again, just to kind of reiterate for folks that are just filing in now, this is part 3 of a 3-part mini-series that we started 2 weeks ago, where we were looking inside the Togakure school, which is our theme or our focus for our upcoming Daikomyosai, our New Year's training intensive that we will be doing. What is that, James? January 10th, 11th, and 12th, I think. So what we've been looking at is a core principle within that lineage, which is to never meet the attacker, never engage with the attacker head on, okay, directly from the front. Right, that's a bujutsu thing. Right, we're just going to charge headlong into the battle, that kind of thing, not the ninja way. Right. So in part 1, right, we took a look at these principles themselves. We also took a look at some alternative terms that are used, Japanese words that are often used in the martial system, focusing heavily on the one that most people probably have encountered more often than not, which is the Kyojutsu Tenkan, right? The juxtapositioning of truth and falsehood. That week, took a look at that much more deeply during our Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, and then, of course, took a look at it in physical form during our Friday masterclass. And then last week, we took a look at another aspect of this, but more from the perspective of understanding the difference between Budo and Ninpo, right? Budo Taijutsu, Ninpo Taijutsu, and what makes the difference, right? Answering the question that was really the theme or title of the show, which was which one, right? Budo Taijutsu, Nippo Taijutsu, what the hell are we doing, right? So we kind of came at that from that direction, taking a look at the same principles, as well as the ancillary or the kind of, to me, it's almost equal, but where one is how we're engaging with others, this one is really more about a reminder to us, okay, that nothing in ninjutsu is what it looks like, right? And I know we can repeat things. I know I did for years, right? I just repeated what my teacher taught me, and I just, that kind of thing. But if we're actually studying, if we're actually working to understand them and not just get so good at repeating them that it's we actually stop thinking critically, tactically, strategically, that we need to remember that when we're watching Hatsumi Sensei demonstrate something, if you're binge watching, that kind of stuff on YouTube, or you could be in one of my programs, you could be in one of Mark Remke's programs, whatever, right? When we're doing these things, if we actually know what we're talking about, or our bodies are able to cash the checks that our mouths are writing, then we need to recognize that what we see is not what's happening. Okay. I mean, we can see the body parts moving, right? But if nothing in ninjutsu is what it looks like, then there should be a whole lot more questions than the head nodding that I have seen for decades in Japan at seminars and whatnot, where Hatsumi Sensei says, "Understand?" Right? And everybody, "Oh, yeah." Okay. Say I've come to use certain phrases when I'm in Japan, or there's certain gestures or whatever that I'll make, and Hatsumi Sensei will look at me and just laugh. One of those is, "I see what you're doing, okay, but duplicating it is a whole other matter." And that's not just about physical application or the coordination and whatnot to do what I think I just saw. Okay? Because when I was a white belt, way back, um, one of the first lessons I got was that I would have to steal 90% of this art, right? Because I'm only ever at best going to get 10% of it in the dojo. Right? Now, they use the word steal, but what it really pointed to was paying attention, asking the right questions, and almost being like that thief who's going to enter into a building and kind of root around and find the valuable things that you can take with you and whatnot. I know it's a weird analogy, but um, it really requires that we're paying attention, we're asking the right questions. Even in Mikyo, right, we have this saying that enlightenment is based on the questions, not the answers. Right, answers are everywhere. Okay, but it's not just based on the questions or any questions. It's based on the right questions and the quality of the question. Okay, and so while to many people, what I'm doing and the way I'm teaching may seem, I don't know, like I'm being too specific, too anal. Nobody can study all that stuff. You okay. I've told more than one person on this podcast when they've raised those kind of things. Same thing, right? You win. Okay, you're right. Because whatever you believe to be true, well, it's going to be true. Whether it is or not, it'll be true for you, and that you'll base actions, thoughts, intent, plans, and all that based on the way we see things. Anyway, that being said, this episode, what we're going to take a look at is we're going to take a look at this same principle. We're wrapping everything up, but we're going to take a look at it from three different perspectives. We're going to take a look at it from the perspective of the three primary classes or roles, types. Again, pick what word you like, of ninja within a ninja clan lineage. Again, you can throw all kinds of words at this stuff. Okay, so we're going to look at it from the perspective of the genin, right, the low person or the operative, right, the field agent, the technician, so to speak, right, the guy being or girl being sent out on a given mission. We take a look at it from the perspective of the chunin, right, the middle person. Can be seen as the controller, the manager. Toss some other words out as we go along, right? This was the person typically responsible for selection of and assigning one or more genin on a mission to do whatever needed to be done. Okay. And again, they would choose those who they would have to formulate the plan, right? This is what we need. This is what needs to be done. And then who do I have that is capable of carrying this out, right? Really good at reading people, assessing qualities, traits, abilities, those kind of things. But the skill sets were different. Okay, now all of them, all three, right, learned and had the skills to be able to protect themselves. But how, when, and why, right? All very different. And then how this principle of indirect engagement, right? What does that look like? Okay, so I'll give a couple of suggestions during this episode, but it's impossible to go into everything, right? So that's why we have these deeper level programs where students can get more, right? But the Shunin was also really, really good at ferreting out genin operatives who had been turned, right? They're now double agents, right? They're working for somebody else and whatnot. So they had different things. So often people just throw around the word ninja or shinobi or whatever, like they're all the same. Hell, I don't follow Naruto or anything like that. And I know a lot of people do, and God bless you. But there's just confusion upon confusion upon confusion, which is great for authentic ninja. But we're not talking about ranks, right? We're not talking about, and now it's not impossible for a genin to become a chunin, right? Or even a chunin to become a jonin, which is really freaking difficult. But typically, as was even done in Europe and other places, uh, children of genin operatives, right, were trained to be genin, right? Chunin taught their kids to be chunin. Jonin, same thing, right? Uh, but again, how and why, right? So, but the skill sets, the primary skill sets across all three levels, very, very different. Okay, very different. Was there some crossover in the way they interacted? Yes, right. The goals of the lineage or the clan or whatever uh, being of the most important things, all of that, right? So, but again, we have Canaan, right? They're the guys that went out and girls that went out and did stuff. Tuning, they're the ones who are sending them out, right? Processing the information, but they're also the ones getting the goal, the strategy, the needs, right? From the Jonin, right? High person, right? Only ever one in any given clan. Now, there may be multiple clans um, with like different faces, and they're also located in different places. That there's some indications, right? If anybody knows that this is absolutely true or absolutely not true, I have it one way in my notes and constantly double checking on this stuff, but I may have missed something. So if you know for sure, right, please provide sources, right? Um, but what I have is that there is some truth to the idea that the Kumogakure Ryu, right, one of our schools, is actually an offshoot of the Togakure Ryu, okay? Not just because the names are similar, right? Um, but connected wise, right? The Gyokushin Ryu, right? That lineage of ninjutsu, right? Uh, is that there's some indications that that was actually the back door uh, of the family that we know as the Gyokoryu, right? So not just because the names are a little bit similar, right? But what you were really looking at um, is the Gyokoryu, the samurai family, right? Was what the world got to see. Meanwhile, the Gyokushin, backdoor, right? It's the stuff that nobody really got a chance to get their head wrapped around. And if you haven't read it, the fictional book by Stephen Hayes called Tolku, A Tale of Modern Ninja, has this principle in it where there's a security force that within it has a secret security force that the main force doesn't know about. And then that secret force actually has a smaller secret force within it that both of these don't know about. Right? Very interesting layering of things. Anyway, so we're going to take a look at those, and we'll take a look at why some of this is important. We'll take a look at how these different interactions. Before I get totally off track, it's Naruto has all this shit where these things are like ranks and whatever. That here's how you earn the rank of Chunin or whatever. Not ranks. It's not like belts, right? They were positions. They were very important jobs, right? And so it's not impossible for one to become something else, but that's generally not how it worked. So even within a ninja school like the Togakure school, what you're looking at is not just three types or three classes or three roles or job positions or whatever of ninja within the clan. You're looking at three different forms of ninjutsu because all of these things would be done either done or not done at a given position, right? Um, but the skills, soft and hard, that they would bring to bear uh, in a problem, very, very different. Okay, very different. So we'll see where it goes. I have not solidified the training for Whiteboard Wednesday yet. Um, uh, I've got like 5 different directions that I could go with this, which is one of my tuning weaknesses, which is my brain works in a very overlapping, layered kind of way, very right brain kind of thing. So I don't have a shortage of ideas. What I have to do is pick something that not only matches the theme for the week, right? This idea of how these different approaches would happen, but also something that can be conveyed in the physical form, because that's what most people are looking for out of the Friday virtual masterclasses. So, right, once I figure that out in the next day, half a day, because I have to start promoting the Wednesday class tomorrow. So anyway, then everybody will know. Okay. All right. But before we get too far into that, James, are you there? Knock, knock, knock. James. Who do we have on? Who's in? Who's on? Who was on?
So far, we have Dave Fletch,
Awesome.
Jared checked in, said good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
James T681 said great Gettysburg shirt.
Thanks. I'm waiting to take flack from somebody because of sensitivities, but I was also ready to mobilize to go down and protect the park when a bunch of bullshit was going on a while back. Fun fact for those who don't know, I've met people from the Western United States who may have heard mention of Gettysburg and the Civil War as a blip in their U.S. history class a while back, but nothing near what we on the East Coast, right, understand that had major effect on policy, governmental structure, all kinds of things. But that's not the fun fact. The fun fact is it is still a U.S. Army training center. Did you know that? Yep. Officers from the War College, all that stuff, they go over there. And it used to, I mean, it's been many, many things long before it was even what most people know as the Gettysburg National Park. It was used for chemical warfare training. It was used for tank training, tank maneuvering training, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So interesting, right? Not that I know anything about Gettysburg.
Not at all.
Some people, not that I don't study the Japanese battles and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, it's practically in my back door. So it's also where I proposed to my wife in a haunted bed and breakfast. Why not? Get things started off right. So, yeah, it's one of our favorite quick getaways. James knows where we live. I mean, to get away, you need to drive 2 hours in any direction, unless you just want to go to the state capitol or Williamsport. Anyway, all right. Who else?
And Victor checked in, said he's here.
Victor, you are here. Hey, look at you. Awesome. Congratulations to your students, by the way, that I saw your post that several people had either passed a test or whatever your standards are, right? That they got promoted. Cool. Very nice. Good job. Well, good job to you as a teacher, obviously. Anyway. Oh, you know what? Let's put him on the spot right now. Hey, Victor, you going to make it Decomiosai? I love doing that. I am contemplating it, because if you are, I'd like you to do a breakout session. Oh, I was just like throwing a worm on a hook into the water. Okay. People pay attention to the way I teach things, as well as what we're doing with KUDEN and Whiteboard Wednesday and whatnot. Once you learn more about these 3 base ninja types or job titles or classifications within a Togakude school, you'll get a better understanding into how we're doing all 3 kind of, or how it can look like we're doing all 3, but I learned a long, long time ago from several of the master teachers in Japan that we're only doing one. We'll see. Okay. And we'll talk about that in a minute. James, if I forget, please remind me of Ekayana. Can you remember Ekayana? Ekayana. Ekayana. It's a Sanskrit term, but well, I like to keep the mystery. So if you stick around long enough, we'll talk about how what we're talking about today with 3 different job titles actually mirrors 3 different paths or approaches that converge within Tendai Mikyo that I'm an initiated lay teacher in. And there's actually a core principle within Tendai Mikyo that synthesizes them all together. You'd think that I have no time for a life with all the shit that I study and falls out of my face, but either way, it's been a couple of years, right? I mean, like I said, I started late 80. Anyway, is that it? Is that all we have?
It's all all just checked in. Victor said, sadly, no, but I think I'll have more availability starting in June.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to come down to you. Hang out with you and your cats. All right. So, well, if that's it, then we'll just jump into things. How about that? Is that all right? It's okay with you, James? James is my producer, so
Sure.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to bring up my notes here and we'll just rock and roll or ninja and roll. Or I don't know, pick something. Anyway, all right. So let's kick this off. Yes, pun intended. By starting off by taking a look at the roles and responsibilities within a ninja clan. Right. Now, if you look into like the Bunsen Shukai, I don't know that it's laid out. There's some that's laid out in the Shoninki, a couple of other works on ninjutsu. I have some smaller works. Yeah. Anyway, based on the Bunsen Shukai, there are several other roles, jobs, and those kind of things. Again, some of these people didn't even know that they were in or working for a ninja clan because they were just sources of information that were being tapped, but within the clan, they recognized them as somebody who could gather information. So again, it's a mindset as to how you're applying these things. And if we're really studying authentic Japanese ninjutsu, then we need to understand how they think. Otherwise, people make up ninjutsu lineages all the time, right? It's just just throw a bunch of shit together, and because it's eclectic and anything can be ninjutsu. I've heard all of these things, right? Anyway, it is what it is. Okay, so while there are these different roles and whatnot, again, primarily there are these 3 classifications. Gaining are more often than not, like split out based on specializations. Okay. Where the other ones are not. Okay. But it's almost like it's not almost like it's a hierarchy. Okay. So these 3 that we're looking at specifically during this one, Geinin, Chunin, and Jonin. Okay. So the word here, nin, right, is actually kind of looks like a stick figure, right? That word, that kanji, actually means person. Okay, although you might often see Geinin, Chunin, and Jonin translated with nin being man, but it's person. Okay, and then Gate, Chu, and Jo, everybody should recognize that because that's the names for most of the scroll hierarchy in a lot of schools. Okay, so while they might not use Ge in all of them, they might replace that with okuden, those kind of things, right? But you have shoden, right? You have chuden, and sometimes you have geiden, but again, that can be like okuden. In the Gyoko school, right, we have joryaku no maki, we have churyaku no maki, and we have geiryaku no maki. Okay, so Jo in this case is high. Okay, uh, we've talked about this in previous episodes where people tend to mistakenly translate Shoden no Maki or Joryaku no Maki as the beginner scrolls. Right? No, right? It's the highest and most important principles and concepts within a lineage. Okay, and then you have a variation scroll, pretty much, right? And then you have what we might call the what if kind of things. Okay, so, but these were three roles, three job titles, right? And they had different responsibilities. And because of those responsibilities, right, the way or the reason that they would need, let's say, taijutsu, right? The reason they would need fighting skills, very different. But regardless of whether they're using fighting skills or some other skill, okay, the primary principles that are being applied, right? For this episode specifically related to evasion, this indirect engagement that we're talking about, right? Again, all going to be different based on uh, their expertise, right? Mission objectives, or let's call it overarching need for clan survival and secrecy. Okay? So again, gaining, right? We could call them the executors. We can call them the field agents, right? They're the guys that went out or the girls that went out and they collected the information, or they did the assassination or whatever, right? Whatever was needed for that particular mission. Or in many cases, they were the military advisor, right, to a samurai group, much like our U.S. Special Forces or Delta Force or whoever, are often placed within an ally's army or within their different groups or divisions and whatnot to act as an advisor because of the information that they have or know, or just because of the way their brain works, right? Their ability to think more strategically or tactically, right? And how that's different from the way that we'll call it the client group, right? Would do things. Okay. So again, their primary role within a clan or a lineage is they're the ones who carried out the direct hands-on aspects of missions, whatever they happen to be. Okay. So when we talk about like application of these principles, okay, so for one of these operatives, right, for the Gaining, not engaging head on was more often than not a tactical necessity, right? There were a solo, or they might be in a small team, right? Togakure Ryu has a lot of things where it's like 3-person teams as they're moving into things. So what that means is that when they infiltrate enemy territory or a castle or whatever they're doing, they're way outnumbered. Okay, so if you're spotted and if you're chased, right? Think about these ninja movies and whatnot, and how they just end up having to use a whole lot of trickery and whatever. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but that kind of shit makes for really good movies. Okay. But the Togakure also had a saying for that was very specific to the geinin level, which was if a ninja had to draw a sword, he's already lost. Right? And that's because he's been identified. He's been noticed, right? So they're going to set up the alarm, and now you get this major problem. Okay? Research and read some of the historical notes about how ninja were killed, right, or interrogated back in the day. There's some things that are out there, okay, like either boiled in hot water or boiled in oil, and or having their skin flayed off their body, and cool shit, right? Anyway, so again, they would use tactical kind of things, even during the Battle of Iganoran, right? The battle for Iga. They would set up things that would create like an ambush, or they would funnel an entire enemy army into a pass and then attack from flanking kind of positions, right? Very interesting, right? Heavily used. Stealth, misdirection, those kind of things to infiltrate enemy lines or just complete their tasks unnoticed, right? How do I get in? How do I get out without being noticed? Okay? And that's the idea. Okay? I have often used that kind of tactic where, during my days as a private investigator, right? How do I go into a place surveilling somebody, right? How do I go into a place that, let's say it's a small bar that gets a lot of regulars, right? And here I am, right? Not from the area, probably my first time in there. Okay, I'm saying probably because I might have to account for local areas and whatnot. But I remember going to a place where country music kind of place, and so how do I go in and look like I'm just from out of the area, staying overnight, just stopped in, and very quickly get people to just either talk to me, right, which is doable, right? Tell me all kinds of stuff, or just very quickly just blend into the background, just blend into the woodwork, so to speak, right? Order a beer, whatever, sit like I'm just relaxing and I'm just not anybody that begs attention or anything like that. Okay, so the not engaging head on also includes things like escape and evasion tactics, right? Obviously to avoid detection and to ensure survival after completing their mission. Right? So you got infiltration, you got exfiltration, right? How do you get in? How do you get out? That kind of thing, right? And both with night fighting as well as just anything else. Now, we're not covering the entire realm of the Togakure's Tonko no Jutsu, right? Escape and evasion stuff. But like going into was it first part of this series, right? We talked about Kyutsu Tenkan, right? The truth and falsehood kind of idea, right? Being able to create confusion, exploiting the enemy's reliance on direct engagement, getting people to scatter, right? Some gaining tactics were starting fires, those kind of things, because you can, or just getting animals to stampede that gets humans to scurry, and then you can disappear in a crowd, kind of thing, right? The idea of invisibility and how you make things happen. Okay, so again, gaining, right? These are the guys and girls that go in, do stuff, come back out. Okay, chunin, middle person, right? We can call them managers. We can call them, I don't know, we could stretch it a little bit and call them field commanders. But um, I think a better word would be like coordinators, right? Um, in some modern intelligence agencies, right? I know in the James Bond movies, right, the guy that plays this role, right, that assigns agents to go do things, and he has developed, or she has developed the plan from the big picture goal that's been passed down, right? Are we just collecting information? Are we just observing? Are we carrying out a proactive op or whatever? In the James Bond movies, his character is known as M, right? I don't know what the hell M stands for. However, in a lot of uh, clandestine groups, this person is often designated as C, right? As in control. Okay, so they're the controller, the coordinator, that kind of thing, right? So their primary role was as sort of a middle management within the clan, right? Um, Overseeing getting, coordinating missions, that kind of thing, right? Um, there's a secondary role that's in here that's equally important, right? That's often missed by people, and that is the because we in today's world, right? We know that there's some head of the intelligence committee or whatever who's overseeing, let's say, the CIA, NSA, whatever, or the director's position, right, is published, right? The director isn't the one that's sending gaining out. They're passing down missions or you know keeping an eye on what's going on from a kind of a global perspective, but everybody can see who that person is, right? But who's really pulling the strings, who's really um, you know putting things into play. Okay, so a secondary but equally important role of the tuning was to protect the identity of the Jonin, okay, the high person, the leader, right? There's only ever one of them, right? So not just from the public, but from the Gainin themselves, because it was always possible for a Gainin to be caught, tortured, to get information. Okay, if everybody finds out who the Jonin is, right, then they're in a world of hurt. Okay, because that's the person who, right, knows and is connected and whatever, right? So their job often again was the protection of the identity, right, of the Jonin, right? But anyway, let's stay with the tuning for a moment, okay? So how would this role, how would this position, how would this person, right, use, right, strategically use this principle or concept of indirect engagement, right? Well, they're sending other people out to do the work, right? As far as the engagement goes, the Gainin are doing that. Okay, so the Gainin's application of this is very direct and real time. Okay, the Tunin's indirect engagement begins with their very job title of sending other people to do the work, right? So they're not meeting the bad guy head on. They're not meeting the enemy clan or whatever directly, right? They're sending the worker ants out, so to speak, and they're coming back with the information. But so again, um, they had to ensure that Gainin teams or individual operatives, right, use deception and misdirection effectively. So they might not just say, go get this information, but they might have information from other operatives, right? Because every operative is not sent out to get the same information, right? One might be sent out just to map the territory. One might be sent out to collect information about security and response times and stuff like that, right? One might be sent out to get a feel for resentment and discontent and whatnot among the ranks, or just among the civilian populace. those kind of things. So let's say the one that's being sent out now, right? I need you to get this information, find these things out. However, be careful because XYZ is going on in this direction over here. This would be this person or three might be good to make contact with, because we know that they already, right, are not happy with the way things are going on, right? So this is not linear, right? This is very, very it's almost like a spider web, right, with these things going out and coming back, right, to the tune-in. So the tune-in is this almost a master tactician, right? How do we go about doing these things? Okay. Their job is to assess the battlefield, mission context, those kind of things, right? And then instructing or directing Gaining to exploit opportunities, right? To outmaneuver or ambush, if that's the big thing, right? Rather than to confront directly. Or again, circumvent certain things, right? We need information about this group over here, but what we're going to do is connect with this other group who hates their guts, and so they're going to have a lot of information about things, and they're going to be less tight-lipped about talking about what's going on over here because they're enemies, right? They're going to be tight-lipped about what they're doing, but they're not going to be tight-lipped about what their enemy's doing. Okay, so how does that work out? Okay, if we do extend this to let's say night fighting, or again, things can extend beyond night fighting, but let's say that they did have to get more directly involved, although they would rarely get directly involved unless, as in the Battle of Iganoran and some of these other places where Togakushi and the Iga area and whatnot they were under siege. They were being attacked, right? So everybody was in danger. Okay, so in this case, they might supervise missions, right? But they're going to be in a hidden vantage point, right? And then they could be ready to intervene or direct or redirect forces as needed, right? But they might go out and survey the land and understand what direction somebody's coming in. A lot of these things are reflected in the names of the modules within our curriculum. Right? So, for instance, Module 2 is the realm of the tactician. Okay, Module 1 is just foundations, right? So we're giving a lot of the principles and concepts and evasion and different kamae and whatnot. That's all fine. But that's more your general. The purpose of Mod 1 is really to give somebody a sampling of things to come, but to also provide them with 2 or 3 techniques as starter points for all of what we know to be the most common attacks that people would have to deal with. Right? So whether it's bear hugs or a straight punch, hook punch, rising or lateral kick, those kind of things, right? Clothing grabs, that kind of stuff. But beginning in Mod 2, we start to look at more of a purpose-driven thing. So, and I know how easy it can be for students to get lost in the techniques and the skills and whatnot, because there's certainly a bunch in each of the modules. But Module 2 is titled The Realm of the Tactical Warrior, or the Realm of the Tactician. Okay, so it's all about tactics. It's all about how do we set things up and how do we do things in a way that makes the execution of the technique, whatever it is we're trying to do, right? Whether it's evasion, escape, actual physical, having to get this person off me or whatever. How do I set things up tactically so that the execution of the technique, right, is easier, right? Less wear and tear on me as possible. Okay. So anyway, talking about that more as we go along, but let's just keep cruising. Okay. So gaining, low person, operative, tuning, coordinator, control, quote unquote, middle management, whatever. Okay. Then the high person, right? Again, only one typically within a ninja clan. The Jonin, right? We can see these folks from the perspective of the master strategist. Okay. So this was the leader, right? This was the decision maker. Okay. This is the person who decided who the entire clan would align themselves with, right? How they would interact, right? But they also decided what was important, right? They were tied in to the social fabric of life, right? Invisible outside the clan and inside the clan, okay? So they hobnob with the bigwigs, right? They, it was they were seen as wealthy, influential, whatever the guise was, philosopher, business person, whatever. Okay, so they were the ones that had their pulse on what was going on, right? Socially, culturally, right? Within their little region. But again, who the clan would align with, who could be clients, and who we're going to stay away from. So they came up with the missions, right? So here's what we need, right? We're going to be doing this thing. Here's the big picture, and they may split that big picture into a couple of pie pieces, so to speak, and then assign each part of the plan to a tunin, who then would develop a way to gather everything that was needed for that. Think goal setting, 101, 202, 404. Okay. So the tuning is going to lay that stuff out. So this one thing may have to be split into 3, 4, 5 missions. And then, right, then we're going to gather up the Gaining who need to do those things, right? Send them out to do their stuff. And then as information comes back, they're kind of painting this picture. Do we have it? Are we now aware of things that we didn't, know before, or that we need to really consider? So they're going to pass that up to the leader for them to consider those kind of things, right? But again, leaders, decision makers, if we could say that they were tasked with anything, right? The clan was really dependent upon them for, again, mission planning and overall ensuring the clan's survival, because whoever they decided they were going to align with or who they were going to, make enemies of, whatever, right? All of that, right? Karma, right? So each of those things is going to create certain situations and certain ripple effects and things like that, right? So, but they were I believe them to be the most invisible of all. Okay? Not the Chunin weren't invisible, and not the Gainin in their operations couldn't be invisible. Okay, they all kind of played this invisibility thing, and the nothing is what it looks like kind of thing. Okay? So I believe this is where a lot of the historical BS comes from, that ninja were just poor farmers and whatnot. Okay, because ninja would often live their day-to-day lives as farmers or as tradesmen or as businessmen, right, running little shops or whatever. Takama Sensei, Hatsumi Sensei's teacher, right, ran a noodle shop. Okay, there's lots of noodle shops in Japan. Okay, but nobody in his neighborhood, nobody in his circle of friends or anything, nobody knew that he was the 33rd Grand Master of the Togakure Ryu. and all these other lineages. They didn't find out until they read it in his obituary after he died. Okay? That's hiding in plain sight. Okay. But it wasn't about poor farmers or whatever, right? These, again, nothing is what it looks like. Okay? And poor, right? The ninja were just a bunch of poor farmers. Yeah, no, I've been to castles and whatnot in Japan, White Phoenix Castle, a couple places like that were in ninja territory. These people owned property, they owned land, they owned castles. They were a regional lord, right? But they're not dressing like, moving around, or the way most people kind of have this snapshot in their head of what an ancient ninja was like. Right? They would have looked nothing like it. Okay, nothing. Right? They would look like every other leader or daimyo, minor, major, whatever, in the area, in the region. Okay, so these clans had money, they had property, they had position, they had status, right? But that position and money and status and whatnot was typically wrapped around the jonin. Okay, now the money is whatever, all this stuff is for the benefit of the entire clan, but this person is seen as, it's kind of like Bruce Wayne, millionaire, is really Batman, that kind of thing, right? So everybody sees this philanthropist and business owner and whatever, right? So love him, hate him, whatever, but nobody knows that he's the Cape Crusader, right? Same kind of idea, right? So from a strategic and tactical, we'll call it mastery level, jonin rarely engage directly unless absolutely necessary. Okay. Now, there was direct engagement, but it was with the people that they were hanging out with, that they were partying with, that they were sitting on boards, if there's councils, whatever you want to call those groups, that were helping to steer, policy or governance or whatever in given areas. But everybody just saw them as a part of the group. Okay, so even the direct engagement with allies, enemy, whatever, the engagement was for anything other than, or at least to the other people, right? Anything other than the carrying out of any kind of mission. I mean, the last thing they would have ever thought was that this person was a ninja, right? Or shinobi no mono, whatever term we want to use. Okay. They gave no inclination, right? This is a very, very difficult kind of thing where you look like everybody else. You act like everybody else. Okay. I'll tell you a story. Long before I ever got involved in ninjutsu, but was probably one of those things that, I know for a fact it was one of those things that was a deciding factor in and helped with certain tasks and whatnot when I became when I first became a military cop. Right, I was in high school, 9th grade, I think. And so we had this Spanish teacher. This guy was he was not nice. Right? He was one of these teachers that didn't care if you liked being in class. You had to be there, right? So you might as well like it. But there were all these snide comments and remarks and whatnot, which were not only were they not cool, right? They weren't justified, but they also weren't professional. I mean, as a 9th grader, I knew this, right? And he was just, I don't know, even the classroom felt dark, if you know what I'm talking about, when I was in class. And I was a unicorn, right? What that means is I was a student that loved to be in school, right? And I like learning as much as possible. And so I didn't skip school. I didn't skip classes, those kind of things. I know, weirdo. Anyway, he and I would have brief conversations on the way out, not because I was trying to be like teacher's pet or whatever. I just wanted to be clear about the assignment, or if I had a question about, again, it was a Spanish language class, so conjugation, anything like that, right? And so here's the story, right? That was the backstory. The story is he was really rough on a couple of students, and these were by no means my friends, because I was not one of the popular kids. Okay, as a matter of fact, I was the kid that got beat up quite often. I was the kid that just, I don't know, somehow drew attention, but didn't want to have that kind of attention. And so he was really rough on a couple of kids, and I thought it was this time was particularly bad. And I was quite the artist. So I made a greeting card, and that greeting card, on the front of it, it had a black rose and poem inside that I wrote. Again, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember it exactly. Led to this idea that it started off kind of innocuously, right? And then it led to me telling him that he was deserving of the black rose of death. Okay? And wasn't sure how that was going to be taken, but on the way out one day, he was otherwise disposed, chastising a student or doing whatever he was doing, and I left it on his desk. And so this is an example of joning tactics, okay, or strategy. So there was a part of me that was concerned about being caught, but there was also another part of me that was like, would he even know that it was me? Okay. Again, I was that kid that, got good grades, wasn't problematic in class. If other people were acting out, I was, didn't want to have any part of that. Part of it was because if I got in trouble in school, and those were the days when they had paddles, right? Spankings and stuff. When I went home, it would be fist and other kind of things that my stepfather would use to beat the shit out of me. So part of it was not wanting to involve myself in that kind of thing either. However, the next day, we get through class, and as he dismisses everybody, he has me stay. So I thought the jig was up. I really thought the jig was up. And he calls me up and he shows me this card, right? And so he just hands this thing to me, and I just kind of held it, and I thought, oh, right? Because he didn't say anything. And then he said, no, just, you know anything about that? I'm like, should I? Well, I don't think so, but just read it. Open it up and read it. It's okay. Open it up and read it. So I read this thing, and I closed it again, and I'm just staring at this thing because I don't want to make eye contact with him, right? And he said, can you believe that somebody would leave that here? And I said, I don't know everybody, but it's pretty rough. Well, he was shaking. Turns out this guy was a little bit on the superstitious side. And long story short is he asked me if I would agree to keep my eyes and ears out so that I could help him find out who left that, and was capable of that kind of evil, as he would have described it. Okay. Come to find out, based on his words and my interpretation of it, was that I not only was I very, very low on the list of possibilities, I wasn't on the list at all. Okay. That's that's how secret a jonin is, that a jonin could act and no one would ever suspect that it was them. Okay. Geinin operatives are hunted. Chunin have a certain level of protection because they don't directly involve themselves in the missions usually, but they're at risk because if the agents they send out are either turned or either way they're interrogated or whatever, that's the name that's going to pop up as the person who sent them out as the leader, right? So now they're going to be targeted, right? But unless they're interrogated, and generally speaking, since the Geinin only knows as this person as the leader, then right, Jonin's role is pretty safe. Okay, the Jonin often operates under a different, even a different name and whatnot. So even if the Chunin could identify them, pick their face out of a crowd, they can't give the right name. So any name that the person would be looking for doesn't exist. There's even examples in history from the ninja records. Now it's not specifically spelled out, okay, but this one Jonin leader at a certain point, and this is on Togakure, is killed in a battle, and a new one takes over. Right, different name, but really close. If you look and you know what the kanji are saying, very close. But there's no record of this new leader existing before they took over. So the implication or the belief by some ninja historians is that it's the same person, right? But to get people to stop looking for this person. So if a jonin was found out, right, and there was a bounty put on their head or whatever, we just orchestrated death because nobody searches for a dead person. It's kind of like in a firefight, right? You lay down and don't move because nobody wastes ammunition on dead bodies. So anyway, that kind of thing. Okay. So Jonin rarely engaged unless absolutely necessary as far as physical things, right? Their focus was on orchestrating much larger strategies, right? To, again, to determine allies, that kind of stuff, right? They're going to create these strategies for reinforcing things like that, strengthening ties, or beginning the process of undermining whatever, okay, to ensure mission success, right, with minimal risk, not just to themselves but also to the clan. Okay, so they were the specialist in using psychological tactics, long-term planning, right, manipulating the enemies and everybody's perceptions, right, in order to avoid direct confrontation, like entirely, right. And again, when it comes to night fighting or those special ops and guerrilla warfare kind of things and whatnot, Jonin might never, ever, ever even step onto the battlefield during a mission, right? But because of the way these clans operated, right, their presence was felt, right, through carefully laid traps, false leads, diversions, or whatever that they had orchestrated. Okay? And again, remember, things are getting split. So you might have a Jonin, and under him, there might be 3 or 4 Chunin. So even that big picture, they're the only person who knows the big picture, the full-on strategy. And then they're going to divide that up among Chunin, who think that that's what they have is the mission. And then the Geinin are getting bits and pieces based on them being sent out. I mentioned earlier that Chunin were really good at handling people, right? Knowing what people's specializations are, those kind of things. One of the ways that Chunin had for catching double agents, for catching their own people that had been turned or whatever, is they would send out, if they believed that this was going on, they would send out the person that they suspected and one or two others to accomplish the same mission. And then when these, let's say, three operatives came back, all at different times, obviously, right? Because there were no trains, buses, and taxis running in 16th, 15th century Japan, at least not that I know of. Anyway, when they all came back, they would report on the information about this thing. And then what they would be looking for, obviously, is the one who told them just the opposite or something that didn't match, because whoever was honest is going to come back with, the information that's in the same ballpark, right? And then if this person is working for, if person 3 is working for the enemy, they're going to have twisted, inside out, backwards kind of information that points in a different direction, right? And so that's how they would, it's one of the ways they would use to ferret these things out. Okay. But again, when we're looking at direct confrontation or indirect confrontation or engagement, we're looking at completely different things, right? So the Genin is using stealth and escape and evasion tactics, all the stuff that attracts most people to ninjutsu. Okay, it's all the physical skills, right? Climbing walls and hiding and camouflage and all that kind of stuff, right? But again, a lot of people throw, when they think of ninja, that's what they think of, right? But we're looking at a chunin, right? Their indirect engagement is they're sending other people to do the engagement and bring the information back. Okay? So that's who's more likely to get involved in the physical, combative, self-defense kind of stuff. Well, the Genin, right? Chunin might, if they're, because remember, battlefield maneuvering and signaling and all that way back in the day was done by drums, or they would have, like the generals and whatnot would have these fans that they would use in certain angles and whatnot. They were colored white or red or whatever, and they would hold these things up and move them, and it would be a sort of signaling like the Navy had with like flags and whatnot, right? But again, during a surprise attack, we're not going to be using drums and whatnot. And if you've ever been to Togakure or Togakushi Mountain and that whole range and whatnot, yeah, good luck. Because some of those freaking things are not straight up, but pretty freaking close. Big old gorges that they all drop into and whatnot. So they're going to be at a distant vantage point, but they can't be too far away because, one, they need to survey the attack and the land, but they need to be close enough also so that runners could, get the information from the lines back to them, and then that's how they would send orders back out. So if they needed to intervene, if they needed to get in there and help, well, then they can do that. Okay. But either way, what you have is an indirect engagement. Okay? But the Jonin are directly engaging with the enemy or with whatever sources and resources and whatnot that they're dealing with on the frontal side, so to speak. Okay. So yeah, they're talking to these people that are interacting with them. They're going to parties or dinner or whatever with all these people, but they're never seen as a threat. They're never seen as a problem. They're always seen as an ally, right? So the indirect engagement, right? Even though it looks like it's head on, the other person doesn't really know the person that they're dealing with. Okay. So it looks the same, but it's not the same at all. Okay? Not the same at all. Okay. So that being said, for the moment, James, do we have any questions, comments, anything about just the layering before I move on to the next topic?
No, just over on YouTube. Into just checked in, said hi, all listening in a bit for the jewels of knowledge. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, thanks. I always appreciate when folks jump on and are here. Anyway, so some of you that have been following for a while probably know this story, so I apologize. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music. I got this secondhand, right, from Sensei Shidoshi Hayes when I was with him. He had a conversation with one of the, I don't know if it's a soke now or if it's just one of the master teachers. I don't know that I ever knew the name, but it was after a class. They were walking to the train station, and he was expounding on how he thinks he figured out the way this hierarchy worked in today's world. That Hatsumi Sensei was the Jonin, and then the teachers were the Chunin, and then the students were the Geinin. And this teacher supposedly said, no, that's not the way it works at all. Okay. Because if people are students, well, then they're not fully trained operatives, are they? All right. And we're not really sending people out, right? The instructors aren't sending people out to be, to on missions or whatever. Yes, you have practicing as homework and learning certain skills, but that's not the same, right? And Hatsumi Sensei. Now, the other perspective on a Jonin is that they are part warrior, part philosopher, part wizard, that kind of thing. Because if a Geinin is sent out, let's say they're sent out to do an assassination thing, right? Literally sent out to kill somebody. Okay, they're going to cut the person's head off. They're going to sneak into their house and hide in the rafters and drop a thread and roll some poison down so the person, it drops into their mouth and whatnot, which is not as easy as it sounds, by the way, or whatever. Okay, they're going to hide in a toilet pot in a latrine, right? For however long it takes. And when the person sits down to do their thing, they're going to shove a short spear up this person's ass and through their body. All real tactics, okay? But it's a physical carrying out of the thing, okay? If a Chunin is going to assassinate somebody, then they are going to do one of two things. They're either going to send a Geinin to do the work, or they're going to stir up problems. They might send Geinin to certain areas to stir up unrest among the targets, either friends or enemies, depending on how they're working it, right? So that one of them gets pissed off enough to do the job. Okay, so now nothing leads back to the clan at all. See, if a Geinin does it, everything's going to lead back if they get caught. So they had to be really, really good at stealth, infiltration, exfiltration, right? That's where the Tonko no Jutsu comes in, but even if we explore the Tonko no Jutsu, right, this escape, guerrilla warfare, this whole thing, right? You're going to find that some of it's applicable to, most is going to be applicable to Geinin, but like using the Uda Gotan pull tactic of bird of prey, right? One of those principles is to use high vantage points to survey situations and things like that, right? So they might do that. Not that a gaining can't, but might do that very much like that battle scene and whatnot, right? But if a Jonin does the assassination, nobody knows. The person suddenly just gets sick and dies, right? Or is attacked by a wild dog, whatever. Okay, nothing. There's no signs, signals, anything that points back to this individual. Okay, looks like it was just shit happens, right? Very, very different, right? So you got one who's might shoot somebody with a poison blow dart. You got somebody else who is either sending somebody to do it, or they're going to stir unrest and whatnot, so that somebody else does the work because they're already almost there anyway, right? And the other person, well, how the hell they just get the person sick, so they just died, right? It's part of the study, right? And how we train. So anyway, very, very different, right? But anyway, back to this story, right? What this teacher said was, you understand, Hatsumi Sensei is a Jonin. Okay. So he can only ever teach us how to be Jonin. Well, that's problematic for all these people that want to be Geinin. Or is it? No, because he teaches like all these, Budo skills and the omote, right? So we're going to call the omote the Geinin part, right? I think people can pretty much settle into these positions, right? And so from a Jonin's position, right, a Jonin can form an entire clan. Right? So they're going to select who the Chunin are. Chunin are going to recruit people and or make sure that they're trained a certain way so that they can use them. Doesn't work the other way around. Okay. For a Geinin to do that, the Geinin has to move into a position of being a Jonin, but they have to understand the roles for everything. So to give you an example of how this was done, in the early days, we were all instructed that at a certain point, we would be responsible for starting our own networks and basically ninja organizations. And that's when there was only 5 Dan levels in the Bujinkan. Okay. At 5th Dan, when you get your Shidoshi, part of your responsibility was to start your own organization and network. So again, something not generally known because a lot of people that are running around so-called in charge didn't get this piece of information. Right. So one of the lessons was to establish your own network, right? So that you could get help and the type of help and whatnot when you needed it, whoever that happened to be. Right. So we were all taught that, start with people that you know and understand what their skill sets are, right? Doctors and lawyers and accountants and whatever, right? This guy's really good at fixing cars, whatever, right? And you nurture those bonds, those friendships and whatnot. So those folks were very willing to help you out if you need help. Okay. It's not about using people. It's just about recognizing what you have around you. Okay. And again, a lot of these friends and family fall into that category or several categories within the Bansen Chukai, where they don't even know that they're a part of your ninja network. They're just friends and family who like you and are willing to help. Okay? But establishing your own organization, well, how the hell you do that? Okay. So these were lessons that kind of get passed down, right? So Hatsumi Sensei, as a Jonin, right, can only ever teach us how to be Jonin. But I believe that way back in the day, right? We were just talking about the Taikai in 1998 in Princeton. I think he very quickly part of the that Bujinkan shift from ninjutsu to budo taijutsu for a while until people learned those skills and then they could grow above that. We covered a bunch of things. Was it last episode? Last episode. What I didn't cover, because I wanted to hold it for this one, was that uh, people wanted that head-on engagement bujutsu stuff, right? The greater percentage of people, um, well, they talk about ninjutsu and they say they're doing ninjutsu. The anonymity is not something that they want. They need for people to know that they're the guy or they're the girl. They need to feel uh, powerful. They need for other people to know that they're powerful. Okay, so that conventional Bujutsu warriorship is best suited for them. So the way Hatsumi Sensei ended up promoting things was um, the higher level stuff is there, but people self vet themselves. They self select, right? It's not like people often get upset because they think advertisers are manipulating them. Okay, um, while it's not impossible, we've talked about this in the past when it comes to psychological warfare and whatnot. It's not psychological warfare if you determine what kind of person you are and what your needs, wants, fears, desires, all those kind of things are. And then, when a certain product pops up or whatever, right? I fish, therefore I am a fisherman, right? So you're going to be going to, you're going to be collecting fishing magazines or catalogs or directories, or you're going to be going to fishing websites. You're going to be looking at fishing related YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's a part of the identity, right? So business people are just they get really, really good at knowing who those people are, what they like, what they don't like, what their wants are, what their frustrations are with the stuff that's currently available. And then they create new things. That's what entrepreneurs do. They create new things and they put it out there to see how well it's received. And if it's received well, then great. They're going to be selling that thing for a long time. If it's partially right, okay, then how can we tweak this so that it's more in line with what they're already looking for? Right? You can't be sold something that you think is stupid. Right? No matter how much somebody tries to use hard sell tactics on you, it's kind of like in the world of con and fraud, right? Confidence people, right? There's a well-known saying within those circles: you cannot con an honest person. You can only con somebody who wants a who wants a big windfall for the least amount of investment in that time, effort, money, resources. Right? They're trying to get more for less. Right? It's the way Americans work. The Japanese know this. Right? I went to Japan because when I was in Korea, right, and when I was in Germany in the military, I learned very, very quickly. Wow, this is pretty cool, right? I don't want to get stuff back home. I can get stuff here because I can get it cheaper, or I can pay the same amount and get a unit that's 4 versions higher, or it's better, whatever. Take that home, save a whole bunch of money. Yeah, it's all great. Okay, unless you go to Japan, you go to the specialty stuff and you realize, holy shit. Where's all the cheap stuff that I get back home, and where are the lower prices? Okay, because the Japanese have a saying: Americans won't pay full price for anything. So they make stuff, they cut back on quality, or they cut back on gizmos, or whatever, right? Not that you're not getting a quality product, but you're getting it trimmed down so that that price is fair for both sides. Okay. But people that shop that way, see, I am a practical shopper. What that means is I know what I need. Let's say I'm getting a new laptop, which I will be soon. I know what I'm using it for, and I know what I need. And I also know that when I buy it, it's already outdated by 6 months because that's the way technology rolls. So I'm going to make sure that I go up a model or three to get as close to what I'm going to need. So I don't need to buy another one for 3 to 5 years. But I'm shopping based uh, on need and practical application and work to be done, not on bells and whistles. So you can tell me all day long, yeah, but it has this and you can do that. What am I going to use that? What would I use it for? Well, you never know. Well, maybe not. Okay. But it's kind of like when every once in a while, when let's say a sales rep comes to me, they're doing, I don't care what they're doing, print, they're doing online, whatever. I remember one that came to me because there was an event that was going on that that we could have drawn prospective students from, right? And they had they had this thing, and they were advertising it in their particular weekly circular, right? So I only had two questions because I've done all the work on who my people are, what words and terms they don't like, right? The fact that they don't trust business people or salespeople, right? So terminology has to be different. And because I'm an educator, if I come across as a consultant, advisor, ninja, right? They're going to receive that a whole lot better. So there's words to not use in this realm with these particular folks. There's certain imagery that just like makes them drool. It'll make them break their frickin' neck if they catch it out of the corner of their eye, right? To look. How do I know? Because I'm one of those people. But I've got all that stuff. I also have the area mapped out where parents of tots, 4 to 6 year olds, 4 to 7 year olds, bring their kids in from. I have another map, regional maps that has, and this is over time because remember, I started teaching in this area in 1989, so a couple of weeks. So I have an area mapped out for the older kids, right? So the 8 to 12 year olds, and then I have one mapped out for the adults, right? Which is actually bigger. It actually starts tots, youth, adults. The map area is actually bigger based on parents or adult students' willingness to travel certain distances, right? So I know who my people are. I know how they think. I know that kind of thing. I don't have to manipulate anybody, right? I know what we offer, and so I frame those offers based on desire, need, those kind of things, right? And so when they come in, right, remember, got this event that's going on and whatnot, and where is it? Okay, this event's like an hour away from us. Okay, so so you're drawing from what region? Well, we're drawing from this big thing up here. Only 10% of that overlaps even part of my, we'll use a business term, trading area, right? Not training, trading, right? That's where people come and they, trade tuition for education, right? Only a part, right? I said, that's wow. And that's if people from there actually go. And then what percentage of the actual attendees over this week is, so just the only sale that's going to be made here is me to you, which I'm sure is your only concern, but my concern is return on investment because I'm not throwing crap into the wind and hoping, right? And what they said was, well, you never know where people come from. You can get a student from, and while that is true as a possibility, right? As a strategist and tactician, I operate based on probabilities, not possibilities. Well, anything's possible. Well, no shit, right? It's possible that gravity could suddenly turn off on this planet and we all fucking float up into space. That's not going to go well. Okay. However, right? The probability is when I go to sleep tonight, I'm not going to levitate. I'm not going to float and get stuck on my ceiling. Right. So again, this is a means as a way of thinking based on what level. Okay. Now, it's perfectly okay for people to self-vet themselves, right? They just put themselves into a certain category. And then the other levels become possibilities, right, for growth. And this is not far-fetched because physically, age-wise, desires of what I'm getting out of the art and where I think my skill sets lie now is not it's not the same as that 20-something version of me that just, oh, absolutely, right? I went to Japan, put my uniform on, climbed castle walls, that kind of stuff. It's not my forte anymore. It's not even my desire, right? Will I, physically defend myself and my absolutely, right? But that also exposes me and my family to revenge and all kinds of things. So I'm not that guy anymore who thinks that big, right? There's these other skill sets in, so I can fit into a tune-in level, right? Because I think I'm pretty good at planning and strategizing. But I've positioned myself so that I can hobnob with. So now I'm not in my local area because I'm seen as this guy, right? But and that's only because of promotion and advertising and how many thousands of students have gone through my dojo or different versions of my dojos or training groups since 1989, right? A lot. But when I travel, no one has a clue. I don't go sharing that. My wife likes to share it. I just blow it off because I know that most people, when she says he runs a martial arts school, they see some fat old bald guy. Perfect. Okay. Can't be that good of a martial artist. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. I just focus on self-defense and personal development. Okay. So very different. Okay. But I just wanted to toss that out that right, in the very beginning, I said that children of Gainin are taught to be Gainin because that's all the parents know. Children of Chunin are taught to be Chunin. Children of Jonin are taught to be Jonin. While we're not biologically Hatsumi Sensei's children, students are, see, that's the way the hierarchy works. Okay. The students are like children. You are learning from your elders until you can do it on your own. So right, there's a lot of potential there. We can gravitate wherever we need to. The cool thing is that when you see all of this, you can cross-train and then be able to apply the types of skills that work in given situations. Okay. And I'll talk about that in a bit when I come back to the Ekayana thing that James is going to remind me of. But anyway, so what do we have at the moment, James? Any questions, comments?
Victor asked if you've ever seen the Kung Fu episode with the ninja.
No. And if I did, I must have put it out of my mind. No, I don't remember seeing it. So I can't say yes or no. What I can say is I don't remember seeing it. And you've gone through my Mikio program, so you know why I say it that way.
Right. He also asked if you've if you have ever considered an open phone line so that they can call and make comments.
I have. I don't know if we can switch them on or off. I know we can do the private chat. There might be a setting. They've changed a bunch of stuff. Like I had a hell of a time setting up this this event this time because James and I were just talking about this before the session, right? I think they think they're making it better, but I think they're wrong because we're direct users and it's problematic. I know we can do that through Zoom. My problem with Zoom is that I can't simulcast to different things to make it easier for folks. My biggest issue with making it easy for people to, now if they could raise their hand or whatever like they do in Zoom and stuff, that'd be fine, and we can filter things. But we have a couple of I'll call them stalkers, that should be read asshole, that like to come up with different names and stuff and then sneak themselves in. Early on in using this platform, we had somebody, I think it's happened like twice, maybe 3 times, where people have hijacked the feed and it ended up going out where everybody could see it. But everything from friggin' Nazi shit to what else, James? There was somebody that was throwing all kinds of like Hindu bullshit around. Like we're trying to jack the whole thing, right? And we have this person that I don't know. Hopefully they're like incarcerated again, but they overwhelm the email system that we use on one side. And what they'll do is they'll change names and stuff, and then they'll try to do bullshit stuff. So if I could figure out how to do that without compromising things, that'd be pretty cool. Right now, the kind of workaround that we've done is just having James reading comments and stuff. It's been the safest way. I guess the other thing that I've done is with the student interviews. But yeah, as an open thing, it didn't work well. So unless we can find a safe way to do it where somebody's not hijacking things and can still accomplish the same things that we're trying to accomplish with the multicasting and those kind of things, I don't have a good answer for you at the moment. But yes, we've thought about it. The short answer is yes, we've thought about it. The problem is in strategically and tactically implementing so that we can still do what we need to do, but not have assholes hijack the system. Hopefully that makes sense. James, you have any other words of wisdom to toss on top of that? He gets to share in the I don't know, you pick a word, joy or discomfort equally with me as we deal with these people. Anyway, so what else, James? Anything else?
Question came in over on Facebook. I don't know that this one's really good for it, but he asked, I want to know what can do against a rear choke attack. I learned in Budo chin thing, but is it possible?
Wait, the chin thing is in like dropping your chin to protect your airway. Is it possible? It's possible if you detect it in time and your flinch response is trained to drop your jaw when you gasp instead of your head going up when you gasp. But that requires sufficient training to rewire the flinch response, because we come hardwired as human beings with certain flinch responses out of the womb, and training is designed. Proper training is designed to rewire the flinch response. But when I say rewiring it. That requires about 100 hours or so with that skill, so it becomes the thing. Okay. It also requires awareness, because you don't have to you don't have to uh, you don't have to have the fifth dan kind of thing, or the saki kind of thing, where you can feel them from behind. Because if you can feel them before they throw the arm, then you should probably be fucking turning around, right? Taking a step forward and turning around. But right, as soon as it breaks your peripheral vision, no matter how fast they're coming, okay. But there's also, I've been my experience that you can feel certain things. But either way, there's a whole bunch of training things that goes into this. And this goes for any technique, not just the one that is being asked about. Okay, everybody wants to focus on the physical skill because it looks like a physical thing, and it's not that it isn't. But there's a shit ton of soft skills. I'm calling them soft skills because they're not done overtly by moving body parts. Okay. If we have not controlled or worked the mental skills to quiet the mind, or to not have to have the intellect, the left brain, ego, identify the threat before we take physical action, right? There's an arm coming to wrap around my neck. Or our awareness is shit. Everybody talks about awareness. I watch people leave Hombu Dojo in Japan, and I've watched it for decades, where they're really good in the dojo, put their civvies on, they walk to the train station, making all kinds of freaking noise, scuffing their feet, banging into things, all kinds of crap, right? Throw themselves down in a chair, right? Like they're going to be able to get out of that quickly, right? If there's a surprise attack or something like that. There's like this compartmentalization thing that goes on. And it's not that we don't do it normally as human beings, but these things need to be trained and rewired. Okay. So, if we're like, anybody ever see or hear or listen to the comedy skit by the Frantics? It was done a long time ago. It was a Canadian comedy group. It's called Boot to the Head. So his character, his name is Ed Gruberman, right? He's in a class, and the teacher starts off with some meditation, and he's like, ooh, ooh, right? This is all great and everything, but like, when do we start trashing bozos? And the teacher says, you must learn patience. And he goes, yeah, patience. Like, how long will that take? Right? Those kind of things. Awareness is in there, all that kind of stuff. Because if those things are shit, then no technique, no matter how good we are in the dojo, no matter how fast our reflexes are when we're waiting for it to happen, is going to save us, right? And this is where this is where the teacher has to either remind or just, I keep repeating myself, right? I get bored of that, and I get tired of that, and I feel like I'm going fucking crazy because I keep repeating the same lessons. But I have to, because new people are coming into the system, and people that have been in it for a while aren't listening. They think they are, right? But they're not. They're hearing me talk. They're not listening deeply and doing the training. Because anybody can intercept an incoming attack from the front, from the back, sword on sword, whatever, when they know it's coming. Right? But see, this is a perfect question for this episode, because that implies what? Direct engagement. He pushes me, I push him, we position up, and we're gonna duke it out. Okay? Indirect engagement is the jackwagon that, you're walking by a doorway and you're not paying attention, right? Or these games, the knockout game that people do in public. You go walking around with your phone this way, and they jack you into the ground. Okay, also known in some inner urban areas as polar bearing. Right, polar, Polar, bearing, Bear, bearing, because the targets are of a certain skin color. Right, but either way, right, they're looking for very specific types of targets and whatnot. Okay, but those are all right. That's definitely fucking indirect engagement. That's gaining operatives, doing a whole freaking ambush attack, that kind of thing. Right. But see the physical stuff, and I know how long it takes to learn, but that's the easy stuff. That's easily memorized. Executed on when you need more right brain, subconscious, unconscious, reflexive action than you need left brain controller faculties. It's not the same. Okay? Because if it were the same, then all the years of martial arts training, when people spar, would not be reduced to a punch or two or a kick or three or whatever. That is all this person's retained. And it's their favorite stuff because they can't think of all the other stuff. So, right, left brain can only hold 7 or 8 bits of or pieces of information at any one given time. Right? So that would explain why there's a stance or two, a punch or two, a kick or 2 or 3 or whatever, right? Because there's only so much that we can mentally keep track of. Okay, so do those things work? Absolutely. Okay? Just like Mushadori and all these things that, how many jackwagons, James, have posted on things where I've done videos on Mushadori or whatever. That shit don't work in a fight. You can't make that thing. You try putting that thing on me, I'll fucking kill you. Right? That was a go-to technique when I was a military cop. That Takeori, Onikudaki, that's happened once or twice. Ogyaku, that's happened several times. I have been attacked from behind. Right, somebody tried to shoot me in the head with my own fucking sidearm during an actual arrest. So I always tell people, right, don't write off MPs and military cops. Now, not all have had the same kind of experiences that I've had. However, right, 70% of people that I arrested during that time in my career were trained killers. So, yeah, okay, all techniques work. The question isn't does the technique work, is can you work the technique under pressure when your left brain takes a vacation? And there's a whole lot more than just learning and getting fast and good at the physical technique to be able to apply these things on the street. For those of you who know about my 0-point framework, right, there's a worksheet that I have. So there's 21 lines on it, James, is that right? Yeah, 21 lines. There's a 0 line, and then there's 10 lines above that, and there's 10 lines below it. So 5 down is -5, 10 down -10, and then above it, the 0 line, 5 lines up, +5, +10. +10 is street ready. Okay, what goes on the 0 line is the technique that you're introduced to. Okay? The initiation to that technique. Call it the kata name, whatever. Ichimonji no kata, whatever. Right? Seion, Tangeki, whatever. All the stuff below that 0 line, or all the skill sets, all the things that are necessary to be able to do that correctly. 10, holy shit. Well, it could be 5, could be 6, could be 15. Okay? It's which part of nothing in ninjutsu is what it looks like? Are people still missing, right? So we have to be able to get the technique right. And oh, by the way, that has to be done on both sides in 8 directions, because we don't know where the attack is coming from. So can the attack come from your right, your left? You just saw that, right? And you can do the technique from stepping away and doing it from there, right? And then all the stuff above it to plus 10. Remember, plus 10 is street ready, right? So all of those are the things that need to be trained and need to be done, right? Awareness training, meditation to calm the mind. We've covered a bunch of these things in recent things, right? The Kyujutsu Tenkan, the ability to adjust and modify Kamai and those kind of things as he's about to come in, and we force him to have to make different decisions on the fly, choosing time, managing distance, all those kind of things, right? Oh, the stuff below the zero line, that's working with an uke who plays the game. The stuff above the zero line, that's for somebody on the street who's going to do whatever the fuck they want. And you need to make this work based on him, his decisions, his attacks, not somebody doing what do they say sometimes? He didn't do it right, man. Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, all that stuff that is going to be necessary to make it street ready. Does that mean that you can't use that technique that you learned zero thing on the street? No, you could be the most intuitive person in the world, but most aren't. So for all the people that think that teachers are just overpaid or whatever, right? I've seen all kinds of damning descriptions because the person is, I can figure this out on my own. Maybe so, but not without a whole lot of trying it out against different attackers on the street. So anyway, that's my take on it. Yes, the technique absolutely works. Okay. You have to save your airway, right? And your jawbone is the hardest bone in your body, size for size. And that's the same for all mammals. Okay? In Australia, where God has thrown all the weird ass animals, right, is the Tasmanian devil, right? Not the one from the Looney Tunes. Okay. But when it kills its prey, it eats everything, bones and all, except for the jawbone. Too hard. Right? You have to save your airway, but not if you're twisting and turning, because if you do that, then you'll blow out your TMJ, right? Your temporomandibular joint, and that's a fucking happy little feeling. Or you'll break your neck or whatever. Okay. So yes, the techniques work. Okay. What else, James? Anything else? No.
Just Greg and Merrill checked in, said good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Thanks for making it. Okay, we good?
Yes.
At least for now. Okay, cool. All right, let's get on to the next section here and move in. All right, so let's take just a quick look at how this protects the clan's anonymity and survival. Okay, this principle of not meeting an enemy head on, not meeting the opponent head on. Okay, so it's not just about immediate survival, right? It's a clan level survival strategy. Right? Ninja clans typically don't have the biggest army. This is not like that James Bond movie where he's in Japan and they, in broad daylight, in ninja night suits, they attack a castle. And anyway, right? Anything's. It's kind of like when my kids, when they were younger, they would look, they would, I don't know, watch a SpongeBob SquarePants or some kind of cartoon and go, seriously, that's real? I'm like, dude, you have a sponge that talks wearing clothes. All bets are off. You can do whatever the fuck you want after that. Well, I didn't use that terminology with my kids, but you get the idea, right? I mean, people watch Flights of Fancy and then want to call one little glitch that to them doesn't make sense. Well, how much shit did you miss that doesn't make any sense? That's why I can't watch cop shows. Right? That's why a lot of military people can't watch that kind of stuff. Right? Yeah. Anyway, so just 3 quick reasons for how this kind of worked out with this clan level survival strategy. Right? One, it's really great at avoiding unnecessary risk, right? Direct toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose combat increases the likelihood of casualties, right? Exposure, right? Being found out. If they can identify you, you get a shit ton of problems, okay? By engaging indirectly, the Klan and its operatives minimize risk to its operatives, and it helped to maintain its secrecy, its reputation, that kind of stuff, right? I mean, think about this in today's world, which a lot of fighter-minded people don't think about, okay? And it's because the people that they get into scruffs with either don't or haven't thought about it yet. It's like these people, everybody knows how a fight happens, right? You just watch a boxing match or watch some MMA stuff. Okay. Their intent for being there is just way different than some whack job or somebody that's trying to mug you or whatever, right? Beat, break, kill you. It's not the same, right? So, but if the person who's let's say it's not me for who's actually being attacked, right? Because I got to tell you, if it is, I have to shake up his brain enough that he can't give a good description of me later to the cops or to his friends and family. Because if he knows my name or he knows what I look like or whatever, and he can convey that to other people, I will be looking over my shoulder for a long fucking time, especially if he's a gangbanger or somebody who's tied into other people. No. Okay? This, for most people, self-defense is not much different than fighting, which is two people sorting out an issue and one wins and one loses. That's not self-defense. Self-protection, survival, whatever. The wages of sin. Sin is defined. The definition of sin is, it's an old archer's term. It means to miss your mark. Okay. The consequences are more than most people are willing to. Right. The consequences of not being right is a hospital emergency room, jail, or a morgue. Most don't think big enough. They don't think long term. They only think about winning against the attacker or surviving that situation or whatever. Okay, they don't think about the PTSD or emotional operational breakdown or whatever that can happen afterwards. They don't think about having to defend against the legal system, right? Fail there. And the next problem may be having to defend yourself against 5 guys that want to ash rape you in the prison shower. That's a whole different situation. Okay. So let's say I'm coming up on somebody who's being attacked, and I'm going to insert myself to make this thing go away. Right? I'm saying I'm not just attacking, or I'm not counterattacking on a physical level. Right? I'm going to be using emotional energy. Right? I'm going to be presenting a certain presence. I'm going to be doing things to this person that puts the fear of God, Buddha, or anybody else into them to shake them at their soul. I want to break them, not necessarily just physically. Right? I want to make it difficult for them to describe me, to identify me. Right? I want to break their soul. This is not about winning a fight. Right? And this is not just about a short-term kind of thing. But when I come up on this person, right, to take them, it's going to be quick, slam them down, lights out. I'm coming in from an indirect angle. Now, if I'm breaking up 2 friends, I'll insert myself and back up. They already know who I am. Right? That's very different. But what I do to make them not want to do something later, that's very different. winning a fight that's agreed upon by two bulls that can't get past martial arts is my life, right? Or I'm gonna want to win that belt or that trophy. It's not the same. It's not the same. And anybody who doesn't understand that has never been in a self-defense situation where theirs or somebody else's life was on the line. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Right? Because having a gun to your head and having a memory for the rest of your life, that is, if I wouldn't have did this, if I would have tensed and frozen, we would not be having this conversation. It's not the fucking same. Right? Which is why I don't have conversations with people about self-defense who can't get past a fighter's mindset. So we're not talking about the same thing, no matter how much they want to insist that we are. I don't care how brutal the fights they were in. Right? If they did not jump you out of the blue with just this blind fucking rage where they're trying to beat you into a fucking mental ward or death, I don't want to hear it. Okay. I appreciate that you're a tough fighter. Congratulations. But let's call it what it is. Okay. But I need to make long term, okay, avoiding unnecessary risk. If I defend myself against a freaking gangbanger, mugger, thug, whatever, who think about this. This is not two guys that bumped into each other in a freaking bar that are just having a bad day and want to express themselves. Okay. Because I don't know the guy that I just bumped into. Yeah. Okay. So, and I have direct experience with this, right? In the police and security world. What if the person that I'm dealing with is not going back to jail? Because I don't know. You don't know that about that person. Okay? But if you know that person from town or, seen them around, whatever, right? And that's the problem with the fighter mindset, right? They can't separate the ring from the realities of the world, which is, I don't know anything about this motherfucker. Okay? Because he could just like one of the most dangerous things for police officers is a traffic stop. Equally, right? Just paralleled with a domestic disturbance, right? Partners fighting, right? Most officers get killed in those two situations more than anything else. Because I pulled the guy over for a taillight out or for speeding. He doesn't know that it's anything else until I come up and tell him. But if he just robbed a fucking bank or just mugged somebody or just killed his wife or whatever, and say, what's on his mind? If I pull him over and that's what he's thinking, the reason I pulled him over, I better stand at the right place when I engage with him in his window and not straight in, because that's how you get shot. And that's why cops are taught to stand at the door frame of the jam, front door, back door. If you have a back door, if it's a coupe, then either way, that jam. So he has to twist to look. That also means he has to be more, and I can back up quickly as I draw my weapon to put more of the vehicle and that metal between him and me and make it harder for him to shoot me. Okay? But cops break that fucking rule on a regular basis. See it all the time. Walk up to the window. You know how I pulled you over? Fuck. Right? That's like that teacher handing me that card that I drew. I knew I drew it. Fortunately, he didn't, but when he handed it to me, here, read this. I told you what I was thinking. shit, been caught. So very, very different. Okay. Part of long-term survival is this guy can't identify me, which is why we use Togakure tactics where they're hit and run kind of things. Right? A lot of people practice the Togakure kata, but they forget the roll away behind cover at the end of the kata. They do it like it's a straight on Gyoko to you, Koto to you. It's not the fucking same. There's a reason that the rolling away to cover and to disappear at a certain point when he's all shaken, it happened very, very quickly, right? There's a reason that that's there. But people don't do it because, well, it's just another kata. I'll remember to do that in an actual situation. No, you fucking won't. No, you won't. And if you do, you're probably going to do a tell because you haven't practiced eliminating the tell, because there's a certain point of the kata where you're going to do this thing and then you're going to roll away, or you're going to do this escape maneuver because he's in a certain state, not because I hit and I go. Because if the timing in the sync is off, he's going to fucking see you move. You won't have disappeared. He'll have an idea of which way to go. So you'll have a head start, but you're not going to have it's not going to be perceived as disappearing. Right? So as a part of an actual real world kind of thing, I need to screw this guy's head up. Right? Everything from as I'm hitting him, yelling, stop hitting me, stop hitting me, stop hitting me, but I'm hitting him and he's not touching me. But I'm also defending against witnesses who haven't quite looked yet, because nobody looks until they hear a commotion or they hear somebody yelling. And then they look, and the first thing they see, including that yelling, but they don't know who's doing it. Is it him or is it you? If you're in the dominant position, as they're making their story, you're going to jail. Because whether he attacked you first or not, that's not what they see. They see you in the dominant position, and the average human being assumes person in the dominant position is the dominator, it's the attacker, the guy on the ground is the victim. So I have to do something to establish, to start their storytelling to themselves before they even look. So even if he's not touching me yet, as I'm backing away, I'm going to yell, stop touching me. Ow, stop that. Right? Which is going to start scrambling his head, but I'm telling a story to people who aren't even looking yet. That's ninjutsu. That's long-term thing. That's avoiding unnecessary risk. Unnecessary risk is like, as I'm an ex-cop, I was a traffic accident investigator. One of the first things I learned was that most people have never witnessed a traffic accident who saw a traffic accident. What the fuck does that mean? That means that people hear metal crunch and glass break and then look. And then based on what they're seeing in that moment, back up and start the story about how it must have happened. But that's not the way they tell the story. What I saw was, they don't say what I heard and I looked, and by the time I looked, this is what I saw. So I can't tell you how it started, but I can tell you what. Nobody tells stories like that. So avoiding unnecessary risk is manipulating the mindset of the possible onlookers as well. Right? How do I distort the image that video cameras pick up on? Yes, it can be done. Video cameras are not inviolate witnesses. Okay. Anyway, so there's most people that I've encountered, until they get some training and some understanding about the problem to be solved, which is not just the incoming punch, knife, bullet, whatever, right? There's a whole lot more problems that have to be solved, right? I say to them the same thing I said to my teenagers when they were growing up. The problem here isn't that you're not smart. The problem here is that your vision is not broad enough. The problem is that you can't see things outside of your own agenda or your own needs, wants, or desires. I understand you want to win the fight. I understand you want to be the guy. But there's a lot more to that than just the physical technique. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to move on. All right. So again, we're still talking about this long-term clan level survival strategy, your long-term survival strategy. Okay. Another one is preserving resources. Right. Each ninja is a valuable asset, right? Everybody, right? So indirect engagement preserve both personnel and resources for future missions. A bunch of years ago, and I know I'm mentioning it again, and I have the intention of republishing this thing that I did. What I did was I took Sun Tzu's Art of War, and I did a commentary on it a bunch of years ago. I had a newsletter called Hanya, which is the Japanese word for the Sanskrit prajna, which means insight, more specifically, the insight necessary for enlightenment to take place. Anyway, so what I did was I took the 13 chapters of Sun Tzu's Art of War, and the general premise of that is it's a general using his or her troops. There's 13 different ways to do that to defeat an opponent. Okay, what I did was my commentary was from the perspective of a general controlling its army. 13 different ways to handle these situations. Okay, so at some point, right, I will get these things in back out in circulation, because that was not done digitally. I mean, it was done digitally, but it wasn't done online. Right, I wrote this before, believe it or not, young guys, before the online was a thing. Right, and so there isn't a digital form floating out around the internet. So it's going to take some work. But anyway, so from a personal level, right, think about a couple of different ways for preserving both personnel and resources for future missions. Okay, in my private life these days, I don't go on those kind of missions. I go on vacations with my wife, with my family, those kind of things. Right, be really great if I was like upright and living. One, two, it'd be really great if I wasn't maimed and I could enjoy the vacations and I didn't have to limit myself to what kind I could go on, because I mean, age is going to take its toll over time, but I don't need to be the asshole that warps my future possibilities. Okay. I'm not going to want to not go on vacations or not enjoy them as much because I fucked up and my wife got injured or worse. Okay. That's resources as well. Okay. But this can be seen from losing assets, family, friends, those kind of things, because I screwed this up. Okay. But it can also be losing the use of, right? Because I screwed this up. Okay. So again, everybody wants to be the winner. Nobody wants to be the loser. But we have to be careful that from the fighter's perspective, we're not coming at this with some kind of warped sense of fair play, like an actual attacker, not an opponent, not the other fighter, not that they're going to have the same sense of fair play. Okay. So the way I approach this, the way ninja approach this, right? We're preserving resources, right? We're living longer. Hatsumi Sensei said one time, you can't do good in the world if you're not in the world. Okay? So the way we approach this, it's about longevity. It's about living longer. Right? And then the third one is strategic deception, right? By avoiding direct confrontation, the clan could mislead rival factions or daimyos, creating a reputation for being unstoppable, omnipresent, That means everywhere all the time, right? Even when operating with limited numbers, right? How do you do things? How do you carry yourself in a way where even people that have thought about doing things to you aren't sure how much you actually know or how much you're actually capable of, and so they choose to not because of that uncertainty. I had a student tonight, Zanidon, one of my guys, Chris. We were talking about some of these places in the world where he's lived, he's grown beyond that and all that, and he was sharing a story about a conversation he had with a couple of local folks that are where he used to be, and he's grown beyond that, right? We'll just leave it at that. And they were talking about, certain point, certain people were going to be certain targets and whatever. And, meet certain people in alleys. And I don't know how my name came up, but he goes, not the guy you want to meet in an alley. And they're like, him. Chris, again, he didn't grow up in the best elements or with the best elements, but again, has grown way beyond that. And he said what he told them was, very few people in this world scare me. And he's one of them. And when I tell you that he scares me, okay, I'm the guy with a smile on his face. I'm like, seriously? We just let that conversation die off. This is not about how he said this or whatever, but that's also part of a tune-in perspective as well. Knowing who you should leave the fuck alone. If they say, give me your money, just give me your money. Right? Because it's not going to go well. And even if you beat them, even the Japanese master teachers. I had an incident one year when I was in Japan, and it wasn't a bad one. Well, it was a bad one to me, morally and ethically. But there was a group in from a European country that will go undisclosed. And they were going out one night. Where are you guys going? Oh, we're going out to beat up some Yakuza thugs. And I'm like, wait, what? Oh, yeah. It's fun. We test our techniques and stuff. And like, the teachers know about this? Well, ours does. So I had an opportunity to ask one or two master teachers, like, is this a thing? And they go, oh, yeah, I've done this. Wait, what? Oh, yeah. Because it takes them out of circulation. Wait, what? Oh, yes. Right. If they get beat up, and they don't just go like targeting anybody. It's somebody who's trying to recruit a schoolgirl into porn, or about to hold somebody up or whatever. And so they'll do one of these little blindsided kind of things and just whack this. And when I say whack, I don't mean mafia permanent, right? And what they say is, oh yes, just they can identify you, and but don't kill them. Right? Kill them very, very bad. Right? You mean like morally or ethically? No. If they can't identify you, right, or you kill them, the whole Yakuza group, they'll start hurting people to try to find somebody who knows how to find you. But if you beat them up, they have to go back, and everybody can see that they got beat up, and then they have to cut off a finger, or they have to pay penance. So they get beat up again. Interesting. I still never did it, but you get the idea, right? So, but how do we do these things? How do we set ourselves up so that nobody ever thinks about attacking you? Okay? There's demeanor. There's the things that people don't think are important, or they blow it off, or they nod and they go through the motions in the dojo, but they still don't see the connection because they want that next belt rank. So they're going to do their thing, like respect or whatever. Somebody, says something and you just kind of smile and nod, or you acknowledge it. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. dude, you think I'm that bad in that direction? Oh, you don't know half of it, right? You should see how bad it is, right? See how much I'm really deceiving people and stuff. Oh, it's just, right? Because if you own it, now they have and learning how to keep people ever so slightly off balance, always, right? Mixed messages, those kind of things, right? Stuff that, again, it's not the I'm going to kill you, really, I'm going to kill you, and then whoever wins gets the bragging rights and they get to write history. Those personalities don't do what needed to, because they need to be known. I got to tell you, the wrong people fucking know you. Now you're looking over. Not only can you not look over your shoulders every minute of every hour of every day for the rest of your friggin' life, but you can't look over your friends and family's shoulders either. And if they can't get at you, they'll get at somebody that you care about that indirectly will be getting at you, and then you'll make a mistake, and or that person will help them get to you so that they save their own damn hide. It's not the same. Okay. All right. So we're already talking about these practical lessons for us, right? Modern students. Okay. So let's just wrap this up, right? The historical roles and strategies for gaining, tuning, doning. These things can be translated, right, into modern self-defense and life strategies. Okay. So on a gaining level, right, gaining level skills, we're all doing this, right? And most people are, well, at least they're doing the hand-to-hand kind of stuff, which is still, see, that's the head-on kind of thing, right? We need to make a slight shift to our focus to mastering tactics. Obviously, gaining is about tactics for immediate threats. Okay, gaining is like in the field, you're right there. Okay, but it's focusing on escape, evasion, deception in personal safety scenarios. Right. I often talk about when I go on vacation, I carry a throwaway wallet. Okay. So there's a 5 and 15 ones in it, and it has I have 3 of these things. It has expired library cards, credit and debit cards, those kind of things. Family pictures, but not mine. They're the pictures that come in picture frames and shit like that for marketing purposes. So I apologize, but I'm throwing some models under the bus. Right. But it leaves a lot of cash and all that kind of stuff. And it's carried in my right rear trouser pocket. So that if somebody says, give me your wallet, I give them my wallet, right? That wallet has to have stuff in it that they can see quickly and take off, right? It doesn't matter if they have a scanner, say bump into me trying to scan my cards and shit, because my stuff is in an RFID safety wallet. And that you can scan those all you want, but they're all defunct. They don't work. So congratulations. But he needs something that he can run off with. I can get on with my damn vacation or my day or whatever. I don't have to spend the entire day at the freaking police station, right? He got what he wanted. I got what I wanted. It's all good. And my life is certainly worth, to me and those who care about me, certainly worth more than $20. If $20 comes between me and poverty, I'm making questionable life decisions in way more areas than getting punched. So, and I'm sorry if that bothers anybody, but it is what it is. Right. So, but again, if we're going to be looking at these techniques and stuff and those escape and evasion or the Togakure kata, put the goddamn escape and evasion thing at the end of the kata where it belongs, because it's a part of the overall kata. It's not negotiable. If you strip it away, you're not doing a Togakure kata anymore. Well, you're doing a crippled one, okay? Because Togakure kata aren't killing kata. It's escape and evasion. Okay? Not to say that you don't have them, but in most of them, you're unarmed, or at best you have shuriken or blinding powder. The fuck's that going to do to somebody with a 36-inch razor blade? That's a sword, by the way. Okay. Anyway, Tune in level skills, right? From that perspective, we want to develop the ability to analyze situations, coordinate efforts, right? We want to focus on applying strategic thinking in both martial and professional environments. I'm going to expand on that. Um, whether anybody thinks they're a professional or not, right? What we mean is work environments, relationships, just going out in public and those kind of things, right? Right? Do you have an escape plan? Do you have, right? How do you engage with people, right? Those kind of things, right? But strategic thinking is a huge part of this level kind of stuff, right? Anyway, and then Jonin level skills from this level, we're looking at cultivating the ability, the capacity, that kind of thing for long-term planning and influence, ensuring success with minimal exposure or risk. Like, right? I mean, you can't do this in a big city or whatever, but I live in a what's called a class 3 city, Sunbury. It's based on population and whatnot. A lot of people would just call it a town. It's bigger than that, but either way. Do you know the cops? Do the cops know you? Do you not want the cops to know you? If not, why not? Okay. What I mean is, what's your reputation with them? Okay. Because I've already looked at cops in my town. We're just having a conversation or whatever. And, I remember a couple of conversations that have rolled over to, the kind of elements that we're moving into town and all that. I just look at them and go, anybody that comes into my house, right, overtly or indirectly threatens my family's safety, all exits from my house are at least one floor off the ground. And it'll be the closest exit, not necessarily a door. I will call you. You can come pick me up and do whatever you need to do. And they look at me and smile and go, if you call us, just let us know where to pick the guy up. Okay? Because I'm not the guy getting in trouble. I'm not the guy in the bar every Saturday night. I'm not walking around with my chest all puffed out and all that kind of stuff. They know that if I had to do something, it was unavoidable. And I was protecting my own. Right. So that's part of this, right? It's not just long-term planning, it's influence, right? How do people in not your closest friends, because your closest friends are really similar to you. So if they've got shitty reputations, guess what? Whether it's fair or not, by association, ta-da, right? So for me, what do people in the Bujinkan generally say about me, right? Given that there's some that have, right, maybe a little issue here or there or whatever, but Japanese teachers, according to other people, secondhand knowledge, right? This person, this teacher, whatever, right? Says you're a stand-up guy, which is Japanese equivalent of somebody who walks the talk, somebody who is doing things for the right reasons. They have a good, solid moral and ethical base, that kind of thing, right? So what will people who are influential enough to affect the police, the DA, judges' opinions about you, having never met you, they're going to take these people's word for it, right? Not our friends and family, because, right, the initial assumption, again, right or wrong, is they're going to back you up. They're going to, but they're also probably a lot like you. Sorry, right? Well, not sorry if you've managed this, right? But from a Jonin level, this is how I manage things. Okay. I write books, I write articles, I produce programs, I do public speeches and those kind of things. You don't have to do any of these things, right? But how in your realm can you minimize exposure or risk long-term and not just be the guy that when the cops pull you and him apart or whatever, You're saying, I was just defending myself. And guess what? He's saying the same thing. And they've heard that a million times from people who were actually fighting. It was not an attack scenario and a legally defined self-defense situation. Just the way it works. Okay. So we could talk about like lots of other broader themes and things like that. Whatever. I just think the cool thing is that from this Jonin perspective, and this is where I want to go to that Ekayana thing that I mentioned earlier. We'll wrap this up. So in Mikyo, in Buddhism itself, right? So if that's a dirty word, then turn things off now. But there are three paths generally accepted, three schools: the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. The Hinayana is the original stuff. Siddhartha Gautama, this prince, became enlightened, did a whole bunch of work and whatnot, and discovered what things really are and how things really work, and not dogmatic stuff, it's not a belief system, it's a discovery of, right? So here's this one path, right? And then there's the Mahayana, which is another path that kind of grew out of this first one. And then the Vajrayana, also known in Japanese as Mikyo, right, is a whole other path, right? So in Tendai, right, Tendai Mikyo, I was required to learn the Hinayana path, which is the core lessons that everything points back to anyway, right? Four Noble Truths, Noble Eightfold Path, karma, right? 12-fold chain of dependent origination, how things come into being, how things perpetuate, how to you can't really negate karma, but how do you influence and redirect or minimize karma or whatever, right? So in Tendai, you have to learn that, and then you have to learn Mahayana before you can even touch Vajrayana, Mikyo, right? But in Tendai, there is also another path, which is called Ekayana. So the yana means vehicle, right? So it's a way to get there, right? So you have Ekayana. Ekayana means one path. And the Ekayana principle is that all of these paths are all part of the same thing. So sometimes I can be doing Hinayana type meditation, right? Typically known as Vipassana, insight-based meditation. Other times I could be doing kind of a Mahayana based kind of thing. Most people know it as Zen. Or I could be doing the whole mudra mantra, Kuji, Sanmitsu kind of thing, right? Based on inclination, but always I'm working on the same thing: the discovery, recognition, realization of truth, ultimate universal truth, the way things really are and the way things really work. Okay? Not belief, not agenda, not dogma, whatever. Okay. So the cool thing about the way Atsumi Sensei is taught, again, people have to be willing to read the books they buy and not just pick and choose the stuff because it has the cool pictures and the techniques and whatnot, is that we can look at our training from the perspective of gaining level skills. We can look at our training and study, right, the art from the perspective of Chunin level skills, right? And we can look at things from the perspective of Jonin level skills. Okay. But right, Ikan, right? We used to begin and end classes not with Shikinami Staikomyo, but with Ninpo Ikan. Okay. The way of the ninja is the way of the universe, the way of the ninja is the one way. That kind of thing, right? Ikan, it's a contraction of Ichi Kan. Ichi, one. Kan, way, path, direction, perspective, that kind of thing. Okay. I just approach all of this from Ikan. So all of it matters, right? One is about long term, right? long past the actual altercation or problem. Okay. Or even preventing it before he even selects target, right? So that I'm not even on the list. Okay. One of these things is about understanding people and coordinating efforts and applying strategic thinking and things like that to create the most beneficial outcomes with the least amount of conflict and or friction, right? How do I navigate the asshole at work? How do I handle somebody who's just being bitchy on a regular basis? Okay, that kind of thing, right? Without increasing the bitchiness, without increasing the assholeness, right? How do I make the asshole my friend? Okay. Here's an example of tuning level skills. I have had some leg problems and whatnot. A bunch of years ago, I went to an orthopedist, and this guy is like the top orthopedic surgeon in this huge medical group that my wife used to work for, and so that my primary sent me there. This guy also has a bad reputation for not giving people what they want if he knows that he can't fix it, right? Like somebody wants like weight loss surgery or whatever, and he goes, "I'm not," or no, somebody wanted new knees, like knee replacement surgery. He goes, "No, I'm not doing it." Right? You lose 100 pounds, we'll talk about it again. Right? The complaint that goes to patient advocacy is he called me fat. No, what he said was, if you don't lose 100 pounds, I'm not doing that because, see, the full story was because the replacement knee joints are not designed to carry that kind of weight. They're designed even less than your natural knees were. And here's what's going to happen. Within a year, you're going to ruin those goddamn things. You're going to sue me for malpractice, and you're going to bring me up on charges for this stuff when really you are in a condition where it's not going to work, and it's not going to work for very long, right? But all you care about is you've destroyed your knees and you want me to fix them, but I can't fix them because of what you've done to yourself to destroy your knees, right? So anyway, I'm in the room waiting for the doctor to come in. He comes in, he introduces himself. I already knew who he was, again, because my wife has worked there for a long time. And so when we found out who I was meeting with, she's like, "Oh," gives me this little background story and whatnot. Anyway, so he starts, but he actually sits down on his little stool and rolls up and he goes, "Oh, wait, before I start, I should probably tell you that I've been told that I don't have the best bedside manner." And I said, "That's okay. I have asshole on my CV as well." He just stopped. He goes, I don't think anybody's ever said that to me before. And I said, "Well, that's one more thing you can never say ever again." Okay. And he just kind of looked at me and I said, "Look, let's be very clear about this. I'm not here for us to be friends. I'm here because I've been told that you're the best. I need these things. I need a good assessment, and I need you to do what you do best." Okay. I'm not looking to be your friend. Okay. If, whatever. By the end of that meeting, right, we were laughing and joking. He was patting me on the shoulder and all that kind of stuff. And it was like we had been friends forever. Okay? So this is analyzing situations, right? You understand? Okay. So I could have been defensive, or I could have just met it head on without saying the words. Dude, I'm just like you, right? I am a pragmatic problem solver, and I've chosen you because you're that way. So we're not friends. However, we're friends because that's the way this shit works. Okay. So anyway, we'll cover other things later, but for now, let me just shift back over here. All right. So let's wrap this up. James, questions, comments, complaints? Sensei's an asshole. I thought by weaving in some stories and whatnot, that might help people understand things, but I could be wrong.
From you answered the question earlier about the from the back choke.
Yep.
He said, "Many thanks. Very good explanation. This opened my mind complete. Many, many thanks."
Awesome. Glad I could help.
And
Is that all we got? No?
just Trinity's on. Chris Callen's on.
Hey, that means that Trinity made it home. Wait. Let me wait. She knows I'm going to do it. Did I get a message? Or is this the implication that she's made it home? Or maybe she's still driving. Aha. I missed it earlier because I was on here. All right. Good girl. She stopped off on her way back to college today and hung out with me for a while and stuff before she went back. And we had this agreement that she'll let me know when she makes it, because she had to go from an hour north of Harrisburg here in Pennsylvania down to D.C. So thank you, baby. I appreciate it. The rest of you, too. If you've done anything nice for me, thank you, baby. I appreciate it. That was for you, Victor. Anyway, what else?
Victor wants to know if you actually have an expired library card.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. What else do I have? AAA cards. I have. I don't throw my stuff away. As a matter of fact, for backup ID, it's supposed to not be valid. However, those of you on audio only, I'm digging in my briefcase, so don't hang up. It didn't die. My recently expired and replaced Pennsylvania driver's license. So the hole's punched to make it invalid, except that if I lose my fucking ID, this gets me one faster. Because forms that you fill out that don't have your picture get you nowhere. If I'm in a foreign country, yes, I know I'm supposed to have my passport, but if something happens that gets stolen, because people do identity theft shit all the time, I've misspelled whatever, right? Having something, right? When I take people to Japan, everybody's required to open up their passport. Other expired things I need to throw in another wallet. All right. Open up their passport to the identity page and make a black and white photocopy. They can make a color one if they want, right? And then it goes into a folder that I carry with me. All my students carries it in there. So if somebody loses something, we have something that jumps the line to get us way farther down to getting that replaced. And in a foreign country, that's fucking important. So, yeah, I do. Right? I don't know. I don't have one of the throwaway wallets at the moment, but I know I've got two at the dojo, and one is in a travel case that I use quite a bit. But, the other thing I didn't tell you about the throwaway wallets, I never carry a fucking wallet. I don't carry it in my rear hip pocket. So, but see, that's how I get to my clip knife and not look suspicious. Because I have to reach back for the wallet that doesn't exist. Most people think, Western men, wallet, certain place, at least where I live. So, deception. How do I get to the weapon without looking like I'm going for a weapon? Okay. Anyway, what else?
I think that was it.
Do I really have an expired library card? Well, I look like a... I think we need to save libraries, right? While there are certain things I don't mind having in digital form, again, I'm old, right? But there's an experience with actually having a book and going through that process. It's tactile, right? It's a part of the learning process, just like taking notes by writing them out and not using a digital format kind of thing. Writing is the active part of thinking, right? Taijutsu helps with developing kuji because of the connection, right? When you write out notes, you don't think about writing letters or words or anything. You write really, really fast. You have these thoughts or you're processing something and it flows out of your hand. It flows out of the pen. The muscles just do their thing, right? So you just made a thinking process out of something you wanted to memorize and you made it visceral. So you put it in mental storage and muscle memory at the exact same time. And muscle memory is subconscious, unconscious storehouse kind of stuff. So you just loaded yourself up in two different ways. I just did this the other day. I went through some more videos, a couple of different video sources that I have of Hatsumi Sensei teaching the Gyokko Kata Koku and variations. And I sat there taking notes about things that popped out at me at this point in my training after how many years and knowing that kata and just going back and rereading things or not rereading, looking at things. But I do the same thing when I read the books, right? I read a chapter to read it, and then I go back and reread it and jot down things that pop out that I want to explore more. And then later I'll go through things where it has that or maybe has that or whatever. And I'm tuned to those particular things so that they pop out more. I have my students, I mean, they don't do it and I don't make it mandatory, but James knows on all the belt level kind of stuff, right? And it's implied for all the programs, right? That when you're going through one of the video lessons or whatever, or you're reading something, you do it 3 times. One, you go through it as a general, here's the topic. It kind of just that general first stage comprehension because it's all new. And then you go through it again and you're looking for things that, do I really know what that means? Or, right, maybe I run into a word or a concept that I don't understand, right? And I'm not going to take the time now because it'll mess up the comprehension, right? So I jot these things down. And then when I do it the third time, the only thing I'm listening for are any references, indications, clarity, or whatever on these specific things. Right? But, right, who's got time for that shit, right? Just tell me where to put my foot. Anyway, is that it? So we got?
Victor just said Jack taught us about the spare wallet too.
Yep. I think I learned mine from Shoshi Malmstrom. Bud Malmstrom. Yeah, I had something sort of like it to go. I just carried, a little clip of cash and stuff. So if somebody wanted the money, and he said, no. You need to think the way they think, and they're looking to get something, and they're looking to get it a certain way. Otherwise, it looks off, right? And so you need to look unprepared. You need to look. There's a whole bunch of layers to this deception kind of thing. Cool beans. All right. We good? I know I keep asking that. I don't want to carry people over too much.
Yes, sir.
It's like a Joe Rogan thing. Okay, so I have to look into a couple of things for the next episode, but I want to get another student lined up for our next episode. So and I'm trying to get people from different skill levels and all that kind of stuff. So my plan is to have that as the next one. If not, we'll see what happens. But anyway, hopefully I'll see everybody on for Wednesdays, Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Picking one of the topics. Like I said, I've got 5 possibilities I could go with this. But I need to make sure that when I go into it strategically and tactically and all that kind of stuff, at least one aspect of that can be translated into physical skills uh, for our Friday masterclass. If not, then I run the risk of, like, people sign on to learn physical moves and whatnot. And here I'm sitting down going, okay, so from a Jonan level, here's what we're going to do. We're going to negotiate our way out of something, or I don't know. So I have to put my strategic thinking hat on. And does that mean I have to get back from James first? Do you have it? Do you know where it is? No? Okay. Anyway. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I will talk to everybody again soon. Please, please, please don't forget our Daikomyo-sai is coming up in, what do we have? 6 weeks? 6 weeks, give or take? 5 weeks, 6 weeks? Anyway, so the topic is Togakure secrets. Okay? So we're doing a bunch with weapons this time. Sword, shuko, kunai, blowgun. That'll be fun. And I don't even know what the breakout people are doing yet, but yeah, a bunch of stuff. So it'll be cool. Trust me, it'll be cool. It always is anyway. And remember, we have both live options and we have virtual, and you don't have to do the whole weekend if your schedule doesn't allow for it. But whatever you sign up for, the video recordings are included. So it's like a twofer, right? Do the live stuff. Let me see you move. I can give you some feedback, that kind of stuff. We have one guy who is like, unless work gets in the way, is always on. He's in full uniform. He's doing the training the entire time, even though he doesn't have a training partner. So this is doable. I don't want to hear shit about a training partner or whatever. This is ninjutsu. There, unless you're dead, you can be doing something always, right? Rescuing cats, whatever, right? Yeah, that's it. All right. Anyway, so let's wrap this up, and then we'll talk to everybody again next time. James, again, thank you very much for your help. I appreciate it. Everybody else, thank you for being on, and I will see everybody again. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.